All right, welcome back to Protestant Bros. And today we're going to take a look at Acts 15. And this text has been used to, I would probably say, dismiss, like the Ten Commandments, dismiss the moral law. But we're going to take a look at Acts 15 and see what are the apostles talking about here. What was the whole point of the Jerusalem Council, and what was the whole point of the decree? What are they talking about? What is the context of this event? So starting off with Acts 15 verse 1, this sets the entire stage for the whole chapter. For this entire council, it sets the entire context of what's happening. So, and certain men came down from Judea and taught the brethren, unless you are circumcised according to the custom of Moses, you cannot be saved. Circumcised according to the custom of Moses, you cannot be saved. So why were these people from Judea so focused on circumcision? Why did they want the Gentile believers to become circumcised? When we go down to verse 5. But some of the sect of the Pharisees who believed, okay, so this is the context. The Pharisees who believed rose up saying, it is necessary to circumcise them and to command them to keep the law of Moses. So circumcise them and command them to keep the law of Moses. So again, why was it so important for the Gentiles to become circumcised to the Pharisees? When we go to Hebrews, and we're going to go to Hebrews 9, we're going to look at verse 22. And according to the law, almost all things are purified with blood. And without shedding of blood, there is no remission. Okay. So here, this law is talking about the remission of sins. So it makes sense that unless you are circumcised, you have no remission of sins. The whole point of the sacrifices, the whole point of the shedding of blood was for the remission of sins. So why was it important for the Gentiles to be circumcised in order to make sacrifices for the remission of their sins? Why was that a necessity? When we go to Ezekiel chapter 44. And we can start at verse 7. When you brought in foreigners, uncircumcised in heart and uncircumcised in flesh, to be in my sanctuary, to defile it, my house, and when you offered my food, the fat and the blood, then they broke my covenant because of all your abominations. So here God is speaking to Israel. Okay, in verse 6, now say to the rebellious, to the house of Israel, thus says the Lord God, O house of Israel, let us have no more of your abominations. So again, to the house of Israel, okay, when you brought in foreigners, uncircumcised in heart and uncircumcised in flesh, to be in my sanctuary to defile it. So the foreigners who entered into the sanctuary, who were uncircumcised, when they made sacrifices for the remission of their sins, it was a defilement of the sanctuary. When we go to verse 9, thus says the Lord God, no foreigner uncircumcised in heart or uncircumcised in flesh shall enter my sanctuary, including any foreigner who is among the children of Israel. So God commanded his people that the foreigners must be circumcised, both in heart and in flesh, to enter into the sanctuary. And the sanctuary was the only place for the people to make sacrifices for the remission of their sins. So when we go back to Acts 15, the Pharisees who believed rose up saying, it is necessary to circumcise them and to command them to keep the law of Moses. It was necessary to circumcise them because in order for them to make sacrifices in the sanctuary, they had to be circumcised. In order to make sacrifices for the remission of their sins, they had to be circumcised. But notice, it is necessary to circumcise them and to command them to keep the law of Moses. So it seems like it was a prerequisite in order to keep the law of Moses that they be circumcised. But are they talking about the Ten Commandments? But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. It was not a prerequisite for the stranger to be circumcised to keep the Sabbath, which means it wasn't a prerequisite for the foreigner who was uncircumcised to keep any of these commandments. You don't have to be circumcised to have no other gods before your God. They did not have to be circumcised in order to not commit idolatry. They didn't have to be circumcised to not commit murder, to not commit adultery, to not steal, to not bear false witness, and to not covet. You did not need to be circumcised to keep any of these 10 commandments. But remember, when we go back to Exodus 12, it was a prerequisite for the people to be circumcised in order to keep the Passover, which means that they had to be circumcised in order to keep the feast days. So to sum it up, one part of the law you did need to be circumcised to keep, but another part of the law you did not have to be circumcised to keep.